What's up guys, Kyle here again, and today I wanted to talk about what's going on with the used gear market. Let's do it. Alright, hope you guys are doing great out there today. As I said, I wanted to kind of make a little video and talk to you guys about a couple of trends that I'm seeing not only in the used gear market, but in the perception of the prices that are being put out there on pieces of gear that we're all kind of familiar with. We know what the standard pricing used to be, but now all of a sudden it's through the roof and people are kind of having a hard time grasping what changed in order for this to happen. So a little over a year ago, I would say probably right around this time last year is when I really started to notice the gear prices creeping up. The very first thing that I noticed them creeping up on were the PV 5150 and 5152 models. An amp that I used to pay $400 or $500 for pretty much on a monthly basis. I would grab one and then I would flip it and then move on to the next thing. That was an amp that I was super used to paying $400 to $500 for. All of a sudden they were going up to $600, $700, $800. And I really was kind of confused on what was going on because at the time I wasn't as into gear as I am right now. So I wasn't following the Facebook groups and stuff like that quite as closely, or the forums quite as closely as I do now. But when I started noticing this pricing thing happening, I jumped back into the groups and I noticed there was more of a demand for these amps than there had been in quite some time. Now, these amps are not rare. They are not hard to find, and for the longest time, they weren't even really sought after. They were a dime a dozen. So many had been sold over the 15 years that they were in production as the 5150 and 5152 that there was no lack of finding one if you ever wanted one at a decent price. But all of a sudden, they kind of came back in vogue, and this tends to happen to gear. It's very cyclical. Certain things are very popular, and then they're very unpopular, and then they become popular again. Well, when they were unpopular, everybody gets used to the unpopular pricing. So when a 5150 is your standard run-of-the-mill metal amp, everybody's trying to get away from that amp and kind of find their own tone. That value drops because they're less sought after. They're already very readily available, but even less people are looking for them. So therefore, price goes down. But all of a sudden, there's this resurgence in popularity. What brought it on? I'm not 100% sure. This is pre-Eddie passing, by the way. I'm thinking part of what brought it on is EVH kind of releasing new 5150 models left and right. It really kind of put a spotlight back onto the 5150 name as far as amplifiers and gear goes. So people were kind of raving about the new 5150 models that were coming out. The 100 watt EL34 Stealth seemed to be really popular. The 50 watt EL34 5150 model seemed to be really popular. And with the spotlight shined on those amps, it almost seemed like people just started looking at 5150s again in general and started seeking out the amps that had not really been sought after for a while, and this created an increased demand. Now, when there's an increased demand, that usually means that the pricing increases because people are looking for them. They're willing to pay a little bit more because it's something that they actually want. Now, the supply never went anywhere. The supply that's out there is the same that it has been. I mean, obviously amps get damaged or they die or something happens to them, and there will be less and less as time goes on, but still, this is not a rare amp by any means. But now that they're kind of back in vogue, a lot more people are looking for them, which is naturally going to drive the prices higher because you're gonna have more people wanting that amp and willing to pay more money in order to get it. Add on to the top of that, Eddie passed away in the fall of last year, and like any time that happens, there tends to be an increase in an artist's product, whether it be a signature guitar, a signature amp. So naturally, Eddie being kind of the godfather of modern gear and modern guitar tone, him passing away means that all of a sudden everybody's going to remember, oh yeah, 5150, that was Eddie's amp. That was his first signature. We need to go get that. And everybody's gonna clamor to go find a 5150 all at once, and that is just gonna drive the prices through the roof. And that's exactly what happened. But this does not explain the massive price hikes in other gear. And what I'm talking about is I see rectifiers. 2-channel rectifiers for the entire time that I've been dealing in gear sold for $800 to $900. If they were a Rev G, $800 to $900 in great shape, foot switch, all that, all day long. And when I would price them anywhere over $900, I would usually have to sit on it for like 2 months before somebody would finally pay that price. Now they're selling for $1,500, $1,600, and they're going like that. Like as soon as they're posted at $1,500, they are gone. I sold mine without even having it posted for $1,500. One of the easiest sales of my life. But that is another amp there is increased demand for. Not only amps, but guitars. Gibson Les Paul Studio Fadeds, I used to buy those for $500 used. Now, They're $700 to $800 guitars used. You put it up for 800 bucks, more than likely it's gonna be sold within a week if it's in good condition and has the original gig bag and everything. So the prices of everything have come up. Now, what is the cause of that? I think it's a number of things, and everything I'm saying is purely speculative. It's purely based off of the supply and demand and witnessing everything that's been going on in the world around us over the last year and a half. Now, obviously, we're dealing with a very interesting situation, and I think that that has a lot to do with it for a number of reasons. Number one, people are at home. People are spending way more time at home, not only because of the lockdowns and everything, but I think people have gotten used to the idea of I can do pretty much everything I want to do from my house, including work. A lot of people are working remotely now. They're spending a lot more time in their house and they're looking for things to do while they're there. Now that they're more comfortable with being home and not going out and socializing or not having to drive and have this massive commute to work and back, they've got more time on their hands. Therefore, they're picking up hobbies that they never had before or getting back into hobbies that they used to have but didn't have time for. One of those is guitar. I know this for a fact because I know a lot of people who have come to me and said, hey, I picked this up because I wanted something to do. It was always something I was interested in. Now I have the time. Now I'm going to do it. So therefore, you have a lot of newer people who are now interested in this hobby, and they are not kids. They're middle-aged guys, my age, older, who have money, who have expendable income, who can afford decent gear, who realize what a sickness it is to be a gear collector or a tone chaser, because as soon as you get into playing guitar and you get into tone and you see all the different gear out there, you kind of want to try it all. There's a lot of people like that. Obviously, I am one of the worst. So you take somebody who now has new time on their hands, a new hobby they're excited about. Part of that hobby is tone chasing. They have expendable income and the time to research and try different things out. They're going to be buying more gear. And when people are buying more gear, that means that there's less in circulation. There's less on the used market. So now that we have so many people buying new gear and there's less stuff out there on the used market, the prices are going to go up because now things that were easy to find aren't so easy because there's a lot more people going after them or buying them and hanging on to them. That is a major factor. On top of that, all the stimulus money, and this is not going to get political by any means, but the stimulus is a big part of that. There's a lot of money coming in, whether it be the unemployment stimulus or whether it be the stimulus checks that everybody got. I got them. That's a lot of expendable income that just comes into your hands at this point because new money is being pushed out into circulation that essentially didn't exist before. And now everybody has this extra money to spend because so many people like myself got a stimulus check that didn't really need it. So therefore, they go out and spend it on gear if that's their new hobby, or gear if you're a psycho like myself who just can't spend money on anything but gear. So anyways, that's a lot more money going to buying gear on top of a lot more people who want gear. That brings me to my final point. With all these people wanting gear, with all this new money in circulation and money to spend on gear, there just so happens to be massive supply shortages in pretty much every industry around the world. This is not limited to gear. In fact, guitars and amps and stuff have probably been hit a lot less hard than, say, like cell phones and computers and everything. Where there's chip shortages, the manufacturing process has been completely stopped at some points in time and it is just backlogged everything. So there are huge supply shortages. My local music store, World of Music, they have stuff on order for next year and they need stuff now. And they're just like, dude, as soon as you can send it, please send it, because our walls are bare because they haven't gotten new shipments from their suppliers in over a year. None of these companies are able to keep up with the demand, and on top of that, there are supply chain issues, there are materials issues, material costs have gone up. It's just this whole perfect storm of everything that happened all at once. And there may be some factors that I'm missing too. I'm not the most educated guy, I'm just kind of coming out and saying what it is that I am seeing that I believe are huge factors in the price hikes on used gear. More people playing, more money in circulation, supply and demand affecting the market. There's not enough supply and there's a lot more demand. And this goes for new gear too. There are so many pieces of new gear that got released that they go out of stock as soon as they come in stock because people are just waiting and waiting to get their hands on these things. So these companies are only able to make a limited supply, and as soon as they come in stock anywhere, they're already on pre-order. People have already spoken for these items and they're gone as soon as they hit the shelf. I think this is a cycle that we're gonna see. I think it's gonna take us at least a year, another year to get out of this cycle. Will gear prices ever come back down? I don't know. We just threw a bunch of new money that didn't exist at the economy anymore, which means that the price of everything is going to be higher, and this includes gear. So until the people who started playing guitar during all of this stop playing guitar and sell all their gear, and that demand from them goes down, which I don't really see happening anytime soon, I think that we are where we are. I think that the prices that are here now are going to stay for quite a while. So for everybody who's out there saying, a PV5150, that's a $500 amp. That's a $600 amp. No, it's not. It's not anymore. It was. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's nobody more disappointed in seeing that those amps went from $500 to $1,400 to $1,500 than myself, because I loved picking them up, checking them out, and flipping them for the next thing. But that is just no longer the case, guys. So when you say a dual rectifiers, that's an $800 amp to me. Well, you're gonna have to break with that mindset and join the rest of us here in reality and what's actually going on in the world, because things that used to cost $800 no longer cost $800, and you're gonna have a really hard time finding something like that for 800 bucks. So you really just have to come to the realization that the prices are what they are. The market dictates the pricing, not you. The market, what the entire market as a whole is willing to pay for something dictates the pricing, not what you paid for it 2 years ago. Unfortunately, that's just not how things work. So therefore, if you want a 5150 block letter, chances are you're gonna have to pay 1,500 bucks for it, unless you come up on one on Craigslist for a stupid cheap price because people aren't current on the pricing and current on the times, and you get lucky. But that's gonna happen less and less as time goes on, especially with people knowing how to use the internet these days. They can research pricing before they sell things. PVs aren't $500 amps anymore, guys. Mesa Boogie rectifiers are not $800 amps anymore. The prices are what they are. Supply and demand and market dictates what they cost. So you guys just have to realize that. Yeah, it sucks, but that's the reality of it. So I just kind of wanted to talk about that. I know that I've been seeing a lot of people saying a lot of things regarding pricing on the used gear. People not really understanding why the pricing went up or being mad about the pricing going up. Like, I totally get that. I understand it. I sympathize with you guys as well. But this is going to be the new normal, as everybody calls it. This is what you guys are going to have to get used to in the used gear market unless you find crazy deals. So it's something that we're all going to have to bear with moving forward. We know our gear is going to cost more. So save up those pennies to get that block letter if you want it. Save up those pennies to get that Rev G dual rectifier if you want it. Rev F and earlier rectifiers are currently like completely unaffordable for the average person, so that's just how things are right now. But anyways, what do you guys think? What are your thoughts on all of this? Everything I had to say, what do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Let me know down in the comments. I'll meet you guys down there to chat about it as always. If you guys want to continue to support my channel, down in the description of the video are my Patreon links, my Amazon affiliate links. You can also join my Facebook gear group and my Discord server where we talk about gear all day long. Really appreciate you guys stopping by to watch the video. Thanks for being here. Kyle here again. We'll see you guys next time.